England has roughly 10,000 listed historic buildings. Most of them are photographs people take through iron railings before walking on to the next one. But some of them, and this is the part that almost nobody stops to process, are still doing the exact job they were built to do. Not preserved behind glass, not frozen in time as a museum exhibit, actually working, keeping time. Right now, today, there are clock towers in this country that have been ticking for over 300 years. Some of them were wound by hand this morning. Some of them have been running, more or less continuously, since before America existed as a country. And one of them, the one we're going to get to at the end, sits inside a debate that the world's leading horological experts literally put to a vote and still couldn't agree on. This video covers 10 clock towers and historic clock mechanisms in England that are still keeping time after 300 years or more. We're going to go through them in order from remarkable to almost impossible to believe. And I'll tell you right now, the last one on this list is the one that changes how you think about every other clock on it. Before we get into the list, there is one thing worth understanding, because it reframes everything that follows. The word clocks comes from the Latin faecloca, fe, meaning bell. Most of these early timekeepers had no dial at all, and for many centuries after their invention, the term specifically referred to a machine which sounded the hours on a bell. So when people talk about the first clock towers in England, they weren't built for looking at. They were built for hearing. A clock was an alarm. A bell ringer, you didn't have to pay. That context matters because almost every clock on this list started life without a face. Number 10, Wimborne Minster, Dorset. Wimborne Minster sits in a quiet market town in Dorset, and it holds a quarter jack figure, a painted soldier who strikes the quarter hours on a bell from the outside of the tower. The mechanism inside dates to the 14th century in origin, and the church itself is one of the finest examples of Norman architecture surviving in the south of England. The Wimborne Minster clock belongs to a group of 14th to 16th century clocks found in the west of England, alongside those at Wells, Exeter, Castle Combe, Ottery St Mary, and Salisbury. These weren't isolated curiosities. They were part of a regional tradition of clockmaking that spread across the southwest. And Wimborne is one of the survivors. The quarter jack has been striking bells on that tower for so long that locals stopped noticing him the way you stop noticing the sound of your own heating. He is just there. He always has been. Number 9. Exeter Cathedral, Devon. Exeter's clock is one of the most visually striking on this list. It belongs to the group of famous 14th to 16th century astronomical clocks found in the west of England. The face shows a geocentric model of the universe, the sun moving around the earth, because that is what the 14th century believed. It is not wrong. Exactly. It is just an older version of right. The mechanism has been updated and restored over the centuries, but the astronomical dial itself has been reading the same sky for over 600 years. Every time someone looks at that clock in Exeter Cathedral, they're looking at a medieval picture of the cosmos. The Earth at the center, the sun going round, and the whole thing still ticking. Number 8, Rye, East Sussex. The Church of St Mary the Virgin in Rye has a clock that dates to 1561, making it one of the oldest working church clocks in England, with its original movement largely intact. What makes Rye different is the pendulum. 2 large golden balls hanging outside the clock face, swinging visibly from the street below. People have been watching those pendulums swing for over 4 centuries. The clock also has quarter, boys' 2 figures that strike the bells on the quarter hour, and they've been doing it since the Elizabethan era. There is something about a clock you can see working from the outside, the actual mechanism, the actual swing, that makes the age of it land differently. You are not being told it is old. You can watch it being old in real time. From the pavement, number 7, Ottery St Mary. Devon Ottery St Mary is part of that same West Country cluster of surviving medieval and early modern clock mechanisms. The Church of St Mary here has a clock that has been associated with the same regional tradition of ecclesiastical clockmaking that produced the mechanisms at Salisbury and Wells. What is notable about Ottery St Mary is how well preserved the overall setting is. This is a church that Coleridge's father was vicar of. in a town that feels genuinely untouched by the last 2 centuries. The clock sits in that context. It is not a heritage attraction, it is just the church clock. It tells the time. It has done for hundreds of years. Nobody made a fuss about it. Number 6. Castle Combe. Wiltshire, Castle Combe is regularly voted one of the prettiest villages in England, and its clock tower sits at the centre of the Market Cross, which is where it has always been. The Castle Combe clock exemplifies late 15th century English turret clock craftsmanship, featuring a wrought iron construction with a foliate verge escapement, akin to surviving examples at Cotehele in Cornwall and Marston Magna in Somerset. The mechanism here is part of that same family of pre-pendulum clocks, weight-driven bells striking. No face in the original sense. What you see at Castle Combe today is a clock that has been embedded in the daily life of that village since before the Tudors. The Market Cross, it sits above, was the centre of commerce for a wool trading community. The clock told the merchants when to open, when to close, when to go to church. It was infrastructure, and it is still there. Number 5, Dunstable Priory, and the clock that started everything. This one is a little different, because the clock at Dunstable Priory no longer survives. But it deserves a place on this list because it is the earliest recorded mechanical clock in England. And the reason it was built tells you everything about why all the others followed. The earliest documented mechanical clock in England was installed at Dunstable Priory in 1283, a weight-driven device positioned above the choir screen specifically to strike bells automatically. And the engineering problem it was trying to solve was this: how do you make a wheel turn in exactly 24 hours to match the movement of the stars? Clockmakers across Europe were racing to crack that puzzle in the 13th century. And Dunstable was England's entry in that race. The clock is gone, but every other clock on this list is in a direct line. The answer to the question Dunstable was asking. Number 4, Cotehele House, Cornwall. Now we're getting into the territory where the facts start to feel slightly unreasonable. The Cotehele clock is a 15th century turret clock located in the medieval chapel of Cotehele House, near Calstock in Cornwall, England, renowned as the oldest surviving and unaltered turret clock in Britain, dating to circa 1485 to 1490. It is inside a country house, not a cathedral, not a public clock tower. A house this rare timepiece, found in the medieval chapel, began ticking at the start of the Tudor period in 1485. It has no face, dial or hands, and simply strikes the hour on a connected bell in the roof. Here is the detail that most people skip over. It has survived unaltered for more than 500 years, because unlike most early clocks, it was never converted to use a pendulum. That is why it still has its original mechanism. Every other clock of this age was improved at some point. The old parts ripped out, a pendulum fitted, accuracy increased. Cotehele was never touched. And the reason it was never touched is partly practical. The clock has movable 40-kilogram weights, one made of stone and the other iron, which help adjust the timekeeping. The clock can run for 24 hours, but winding it requires considerable strength and agility. This isn't a gentle key turn. Winding this clock is physical labor, and for a long stretch of its history, nobody bothered. Until its restoration in the mid-20th century, it had probably been left unwound and silent for centuries. Think about that. A 500-year-old clock sitting in a Cornish manor house, completely still, not broken, not lost, just unwound, waiting. And then someone, at some point in the 20th century, wound it back up. As the construction dates of the Salisbury and Wells Cathedral clocks are disputed, they are most likely early 16th century clocks. The Cotehele clock may well be the oldest working turret clock in the UK, which means the clock that most people have never heard of, in a National Trust property in Cornwall, might quietly be the oldest of the lot now. Remember that open question I mentioned at the beginning, about the clock that even the experts couldn't agree on? We're almost there. But first, number 3. Number 3. Wells Cathedral, Somerset. The Wells Cathedral clock is an astronomical clock in the north transept of Wells Cathedral, England. And it is extraordinary to look at. The dial represents the geocentric view of the universe, with the sun and moon revolving around a central fixed Earth. Every quarter hour, a small automaton called Jack Blandifers strikes 2 bells with hammers and 2 with his heels. When it strikes, a group of jousting knights appear above the clock face. This has been happening on a loop for over 600 years, jousting knights every 15 minutes. Since the 13th century, the Wells clock is considered to be the second oldest clock mechanism in Britain, and probably in the world, to survive in original condition and still in use. But here is where it gets complicated. Before the Salisbury clock was rediscovered, the Wells clock was thought to date from the 16th century. But after noting the very close similarities of design and construction, it was redated to the 14th century. The Wells clock got its official age wrong for centuries. Experts looked at it, catalogued it, and put the wrong date on it. It was only the discovery of another clock, the one at Salisbury, that forced a re-examination. And the connection between those 2 clocks is not a coincidence. In 1388, Bishop Ralph Eargham moved from Salisbury to Wells. He had previously been Bishop of Salisbury from 1375 to 1388 and had installed a clock there in 1386. He may have brought his clockmakers with him to Wells. The 2 clocks are almost identical in construction, although the Wells clock shows some improvements and additions, which suggests that some valuable lessons had been learned. One team of clockmakers, 2 of England's most famous unique medieval clocks. The rivalry between them is, in a very real sense, the same people competing against their own earlier work. The surviving Wells mechanism, dated to between 1386 and 1392, was replaced in the 19th century and was eventually moved to the Science Museum in London, where it continues to operate. So, the original mechanism is in London, the clock face and the jousting knights are still in Wells, and the debate about which cathedral, Wells or Salisbury, holds the older clock is still genuinely unresolved. If you are finding this as fascinating as I am, drop a comment below. Which clock on this list surprised you the most? And if you want to see more videos like this one, the subscribe button is right there. There are more of these coming, and the next one goes somewhere you won't expect. Number 2, Salisbury Cathedral, Wiltshire. The Salisbury Cathedral clock is a large iron-framed tower clock without a dial. Thought to date from about 1386, it is a well-preserved example of the earliest type of mechanical clock called verge and foliot clocks, and is said to be the oldest working clock in the world, although similar claims are made for other clocks. As is usual of the period, the clock has no face and was designed only to strike hours. It is separated into 2 sections, the right-hand one, known as the going train, and the left-hand one as the striking train. Each is driven by falling weights which have to be wound up once a day. The story of how it was found is almost as strange as the clock itself. The clock was in operation until 1884, when it was placed in storage and forgotten, until it was discovered in an attic of the cathedral in 1928. An amateur horologist went up into the tower to look at the new clock, found the old one sitting there, and immediately suspected what it was. The presence of the old clock was known to many, but nobody had thought it mattered. At that time, it had a pendulum, which appeared to have been installed at a later date, replacing a verge and foliot. The clock was restored in 1956, and a reproduction verge and foliot were installed. And here is the part that almost never makes it into the general history. There were no drawings or documents available, and it is possible that the original foliot and verge escapement did not look exactly like the one now installed in the clock. The 1956 restoration was partly an educated guess. The clockmakers copied the design from the Dover Castle clock, which itself had been redated by over 200 years from its original estimated age. So what visitors see in Salisbury Cathedral today is a 14th century iron frame, fitted with a 1956 reproduction of a mechanism that may or may not resemble the original. The restorers knew this, they admitted it, and the clock still runs. The oldest working clock in Europe and quite possibly the world can be found in an English cathedral, and was built as a means to loudly remind the locals that one of the day's church services was about to start. More than 600 years later, that very same clock is faithfully ticking away. Its large iron cogs slowly rotating as a small shaft clinks into a metal cog every 4 seconds. But, and this is the thing I promised you at the start, not everyone agrees it is the original. Number 1, the Salisbury versus Wells dispute and the vote that changed nothing. There are some doubts that the clock displayed in Salisbury Cathedral is actually the clock mentioned in 1386, as the construction is quite advanced and more comparable to clocks made in the 16th and 17th century than those made in the 14th century. So in 1993, someone decided to settle it properly. Christopher Mackay organized a symposium with the Antiquarian Horological Society to determine if the clock could be dated to 1386. The majority of participants voted for it to be the original, but roughly a third of participants voted the clock to be of a much later date. A third of the world's leading clock experts, looking at the machine that is officially the oldest working clock in the world, voted that it probably isn't. And the thing is, this doesn't make Salisbury less remarkable, it makes it more interesting. The question of whether this is the 1386 clock is quite important, as the Wells Cathedral clock was previously dated to the 16th century, but then redated to 1392 after the discovery of the Salisbury clock in 1928. Dating mistakes for old turret clocks are not uncommon. The Dover Castle clock was initially dated to the 14th century, only to be later revised to around 16th century. So what we have, across England, is a collection of mechanisms that are genuinely, measurably ancient, but whose exact ages are contested, revised, guessed at, and voted on by committees that still can't agree. The clock that sat silent in a Cornish manor for centuries might be older than the one the whole world calls the oldest. The two clocks that compete for the title were probably built by the same team of men. The restoration that brought the famous one back to life in 1956 was partly improvised, based on a clock that turned out to be 200 years younger than anyone thought. And yet they're all still ticking. That is the thing that gets me about these clocks. Not that they're old. Lots of things are old. It is that they were built to do one specific job, and they're still doing it. Someone wound the Cote Hell clock this morning. Someone at Salisbury is listening to the same mechanical rhythm that a medieval congregation heard when they were being called to prayer. The weights drop, the gears turn, the bell strikes. 300 years. Some of them 600. And the mechanism hasn't changed. If you want to see more of England's hidden history, the buildings, the objects, the places that are still doing what they were built to do, there is a video right here that goes even deeper. It is worth your time. And if this one earned a like or a subscribe, that genuinely helps more of these get made. See you in the next one.